How's it going, guys? Coach Kudo here from Icons Rugby. I'm lucky enough to be able to sit with the man, the myth, the legend, Manny the human highlight reel, while I'm back in Brizzy. And it's interesting. I released a video a few weeks ago around the transition from schoolboy into senior footy. And the reason I wanted to sit with Manny today is he's the current, Colts coach at Brothers, and he sees this on a daily basis with his athletes. And I'd love to get his perspective on it. So Manny, like, what's the number one issue you see with schoolboy athletes coming into Colts footy or senior footy with how they approach training?
Well, specifically with, I guess, how they approach training, they're really looking for a really good structure. They really want defined roles. They want I need to know where I need to be phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And this year especially, this is my first year working with Colts. I've been in grades for the last 5 years, and it's been a real eye-opener for me in that basically the whole start of the year I made my entire Colts team do all their own decision making on the field, in our skills-based drills, in our structures, gave them something very vague and basic so that we could teach them how to be more footballers where they make their own decisions all the time.
Mm-hmm. So you'd say, like, it raises a couple of questions with me that schoolboy footy these days, especially in like rugby union, and I know leagues the same, is so, I guess, regimented to win championships because you have 8 weeks, 8 games, you lose a game, you're done. That if you can nail a structure, you'll win a championship, which gives these kids, I guess, a false, tense that structures everything, where when you come into senior footy, structure's really just your base, but you're going to play what's in front 9 out of 10 times, and you'll get crucified if you don't play what's in front. But these kids aren't exposed to that. Is that
100%. And it's something that we're only really starting to see real fruits at this time of the season, where guys are making really good decisions. And you can really notice now the difference between a second-year Colt and a first-year Colt. So I think it actually raises another question about all these kids who are coming straight out of school but will only have 1 year of Colts. So essentially they're going to go into grades potentially a year behind all these other kids who have had 2 years of Colts and learnt how to, really good decision making. And I guess with that decision making, there's a huge volume on terms of communication, because you're constantly making decision making. You have to talk even more to the player inside you, player outside you. You're constantly trying to organize. And for me, the biggest thing that I've noticed is furthermore to that is with our ball players, especially a kid who used to run his whole team is now finding it a real struggle, because not only is he running a whole team, but he's making decisions constantly. And this is where it comes to that you need that real good secondary ball player or a really smart forward who takes their pod around with them and controls sort of one part of the field. And something that we're really trying to work towards at the moment.
So it rings bells with me around league, how they talk about the spine now being so important, and also that your halves really control a side, but your 9 controls the middle. So you're operating off 3 decision makers, or 3 realistically lieutenants controlling the team. But mate, one of the things that interests me is how have you found the transition? If we're talking about if they're regimented and structured in their on field, and then coming out of school, I guess they're regimented and structured with their day-to-day life. How are you finding that transition into a bit more freedom around university, around work, around, further relationships, around now money becomes an issue for a lot of these guys? How is that affecting, I guess, performance or guys' ability to focus and be at training and really switch on?
Yeah, well, it's something that we're, acutely aware of. We have a very wide base from tradies to university students, to people who are just working. So it's something that we're acutely aware of, and we're actually allowing a lot of freedom. We actually encourage the boys to get out and do other things, and we've got a couple of boys that are out this weekend because of university exams, and unfortunately with Colts that's just something that happens, and at the end of the day we're not professional, so we want to make sure that these guys are doing the things necessary in their work and their careers to continue. But in saying that, we put a lot of emphasis on them communicating to us that these things are coming up. We want to be aware of these in advance, and be in front of it, so that we have at least a plan or an idea of what we're looking at moving forward.
Yeah, cool.
And I guess, in putting a little bit of emphasis on them to make sure that they make those conversations and they have a look at their schedules, so that they're still
teaching them how to grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because, like, I really love to hear that, and Brothers is taking I think Brothers have one of the strongest Colts programs on the simple basis that so many of their Colts move into grades. Like, it's an extremely high amount, and I think that's a huge praise to the club in doing more than just on-field performance, which I think actually creates the on-field performance.
Definitely.
100% because of culture. And where did you as a coach, moving from senior footy into these really influential years of especially a male figure, see some warning signs around these youth athletes who might have been a superstar at their school or made a hell of a lot of rep sides in junior footy? As soon as you hit 18, like, it's out the window. There's one rep side a year. Like, you're not making the district side and the school side and the club side. Have you seen that fall out in a lot of players, or like, what's that transition period? A guy's still trying to live the heyday of last year, where I'm a schoolboy player, and like, what's the ego like?
Yeah, well, we've tried to really, for us, like, where we don't really normally get those players anymore. So, they're getting recruited by other clubs, and we're sort of happy to just go with the good bloke and the guy that wants to try hard and train hard. But in saying that, I think a lot of those guys who were first 15 players, they're the guys that aren't transitioning into grades anymore. They're the guys that if they don't get a crack, they're sort of falling out of footy. And we're not having that problem because of our culture off the field. Like, our guys want to play 5th grade, they want to play 4th grade, they want to play all the grades, they want to be in the butchery after the games, having some beers with their mates. But they're not drinking till Monday because they got to work.
Yeah. So if you're not at Brothers, let's say you're at a different club, what would be your advice to, say, that player? You played first 15, you might have made Queensland Schoolboys, you might have been in the shadow squad, and now you're in Colts and you're just playing Colts footy. Like, what would be your advice to them to know that, I guess, their real shot is probably 2 to 3 years away, but everyone's trying to make it because we have these superstars like your Caleb Pongers and stuff that get so much hype. Everyone's trying to be them at 18, yet realistically the modern player gets their shot at 2021.
Basically, well, I think firstly you need to go somewhere where you feel comfortable. You need to surround yourself with like-minded people who are trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, and then find some coaches who are going to help you to flourish. So not every coach suits every player, and some coaches get along better with other players, and it's about finding somewhere where you're comfortable with, but is also going to give you the development that you need. Because at the end of the day, as you said, like, if you're hitting 21, 22 and you haven't developed that skill set yet, you're even further behind. And unfortunately, there isn't that many guys that make that really good mature age player unless you're a proper second rower. You're trying to still fill out
Man, it's good, eh? That's interesting. Well, bro, I just want to thank you for your time, man. It's been amazing here. There's been a lot of words of wisdoms given by Manny around that transition period. And, you know, if you're a youth athlete, I'd really implore you to reach out. You know, there's a lot of coaches out there that necessarily aren't at your club or aren't your coach who you could probably talk to. And, you know, if you've got no one like that, then, you know, just reach out to ourselves here at Icons or touch base with Manny or whatnot and just raise some questions. So, that's it from me, man. I'm Coach Curto. I'm out.
Peace.
Peace.